Well, hello, everybody. This is the Fireside Chat I have every week. The I is Dennis Prager. Hi, welcome. This is my home. This is my bulldog who, at about the 10-minute point, will begin snoring probably and get progressively louder over the course of the broadcast. At least that's what often happens, not always. Actually, Otto may be America's most famous dog at this time, which, as I often tell you, I am proud, as his sort of dad, that it has not gone to his head. There is nothing more obnoxious than an arrogant dog. I mean, let's be honest. A dog that thinks the world of himself is very unpleasant. And that's, of course, our fire. It's a real fire, which we have not 24/7, but we have for all the broadcasts of the year, whatever the weather might be. So what is the purpose of these broadcasts, of these fireside chats, is for me to just have as informal a time with you as possible, to offer thoughts on that I have. I want you to feel free to look at any of the now almost 90 of these, and hopefully there will be one day 1,000 of these, but whatever the number is, I want you to feel that you can learn from the first one as much as the most recent one. So I also would very strongly recommend that parents show this to their kids, just as they do PragerU videos. This is brought to you, of course, by Prager University. Now, today is very exceptional, and I need to say this very clearly at the outset. I always read questions that are sent to me, and I am going to start with a question, and I'm going to speak about it for a while. I hope I'll have time for more questions. I may not. It's all spontaneous. But here's the point. This is not for little kids, whereas almost every other of the fireside chats, I don't care if your 7-year-old watches this. In fact, I hope your 7-year-old does. But this one is on sexual matters. It is about male sexuality, as you will hear in a moment. And so it's probably not for your 7-year-old. So if you have a 13-year-old, would it be good? You have to decide. Maybe watch it first, and then you will decide. I certainly think, generally speaking, given the world in which we live, teenagers should hear about this. Certainly by 15. One should not hide the subject I'm about to speak about from a teenager. The earlier that people know this, I knew this very early in my life, what I'm about to tell you, and for a whole host of reasons. But anyway, I'll read you the question. So I have told you about the littlest kids, and now you know. This is from Danny, who's 18. Perfect. Sydney, Australia. Hi, Danny in Sydney. Good day, Dennis. Very cute. Very good day, actually. Good day. Good day to you. When are you doing the fireside chat on male nature you mentioned a while ago? It would be very interesting to hear your thoughts on it. And I love this. Also, what's your favorite Beethoven symphony? That's really funny, the combination. I'll start with the latter part. I probably have. They're all masterpieces, absolutely. But I would say the seventh, the fifth. I would go 7th and 5th are tied, and the 3rd and the 9th. And it's not coincidental that they're the odd-numbered symphonies, and I'll just take 20 seconds on this. Beethoven wrote 9 symphonies, and except for the 1st, the 3rd, the 5th, the 7th, and the 9th are very, very serious, and the 2nd, 4th, 6th, and 8th are not. It's a very interesting thing. He would go intense, less intense, intense, less intense. Okay, male nature. All right, here we go. Megan. Thank you. Okay, so this is very important. The very fact that I have to talk about this, and I've had to my whole life, and by the way, there is a series that I gave on male sexual nature, I think they're 4 90-minute talks. And I gave them a long time ago, and I gave them at a synagogue. So they're not exactly risque, but on the other hand, they're very direct. And they're very important. I am sure they're available at the Prager store, which owns all of my, I don't, which owns all of my personal product, as it were. But if you find this compelling, you should give those talks a male sexual nature. I just think that's the title of it. The reason that this amazes me, that I have to give it, is I don't believe I would have had to have told this, I don't think that I would have had to have told this to my grandmother. I think my grandmother, and I mean this literally, I don't talk in hyperbole. I believe my grandmother, both my grandmothers, neither of whom went, well, I guess my one grandmother did go to high school. Neither went to college. One grandmother never went to high school. But I would never have had to have given this talk to my grandparents or their parents. And I'm talking grandmothers, let alone grandfathers, who certainly would know what I'm talking about because they're male. And why would that be? In other words, I believe, I am close to certain, that my grandmother understood male sexual nature better than the average female gets a PhD in sociology or English or certainly women's studies or gender studies or a whole host of other things. And it's an amazing thing. In other words, you are actually taught to be ignorant at college on many, many subjects. This is one of them. Beginning with the lie that I was told when I was in college that men and women are basically the same. And so if men and women are basically the same, then the whole question is absurd. What do you mean male sexual nature? There's no such thing. Men and women have the same sexual natures. But when you realize it's to say that is to live life on premise A and then believe premise B. It's astonishing to me. If you believe that men and women have the same natures, then how do you explain that all this harassment stuff and all this Me Too stuff and all of that is all in 99.999% of it is all in one direction, male against female? Why aren't 50% of the harassers female? How come females aren't just walking over to men and touching them in an inappropriate manner? Because they're more self-disciplined? Please. I mean, you've got to have a graduate degree to believe something that stupid. It's because it's not in female nature to do that. Gee, I really there are all these men working in the office, and I just want to tell them sexual things. I really want to touch them all over them. Do you understand? No, I guess. Well, I'm posing it as a question that is it worth asking? It's just worth stating. The amount of untruth that is told at college and told in the media and anything else that the left, you have to understand, the left does not believe that the search for truth is a search worth making. They believe that the search is for utopia, a place they imagine that men and women are the same, and then they declare it. Whatever they imagine, that is their reality. It's an extremely immature, childlike thing. I believe in monsters, so there must be monsters. That's what it is. I want to believe men and women are, by the way, I don't even know why you'd want to believe that. To me, it's hardly a wonderful world where both sexes are the same. It's it's a difficulty, it's a challenge, but it's one of the greatest things on earth that men and women are different. But that's the reason that I even have to talk about this, because of this, and only the word lie is appropriate, that men and women are basically the same. So again, answer me, how do you explain that all of this stuff How many women are saying to men who work for them, if you don't sleep with me, you don't get advanced at work? There's just, the sexual natures are so different that it is probably the hardest thing that I know of among humans is for women to understand male sexual nature. Some do. Alison Armstrong, for example, does. She has a tremendous presence on the internet, and I have her on my male-female hour 4 times a year, and I have for about 10 years. She's gifted because she and I asked her often, why do you understand men so well? She said, because I wanted to. That's all it takes. It takes a woman to have the desire to understand men, but most women don't want to in this realm, not because they're bad or anything else, but because it's too frightening. And totally understandably, male sexual nature is frightening to women, and I get it. And by the way, when uncontrolled, male sexual nature is frightening. But most men, at least in our society, thank God, do control themselves. But uncontrolled male sexual nature is truly a frightening thing to women. That if there were no moral rules and no police, men would grab women and do what they wanted as a rule. That is the way men are made. The fact that your man doesn't act that way is because he has been given a set of rules and because he knows that he will be punished, or just enough that he has these set of rules and the fear of punishment is not even necessary. But rules, men know this, and we males, I am one of them, I am male. We know this from a very early age. We can't act out our sexual nature. It's made clear to boys in the vast majority of instances at a very early age, and it is a good thing that it is done. But the reason a woman will not want to know is because she wants to believe the feminist lie, the left-wing lie, and I hate using such strong language because the word lie, to me, you have to reserve it for really, really severe moments. But this is severe. That men and women are basically the same is a spectacular lie. And so what happened, by the way, I have lived long enough to see the results. So all these young women go to college, they learn this lie. Oh, you have the same sexual nature as a man. So they act out on it. You're as happy with non-committed, non-emotional sex as males are. So a lot of girls say, oh, yes, I'm just like a guy. I could sleep around just as much as guys want to sleep around. And this is not true for every female, clearly, I recognize that. But for most, that is not a road to happiness. Whereas for men, it may not be a road for happiness, but it certainly isn't a road to unhappiness. Men are very happy to have women say, oh, I'm just like you, let's sleep together. Men are very happy to meet such a woman who has that attitude. But one of the reasons that there is this lie, another lie, that the colleges are a rape culture, I could prove to you it's a lie, because parents would never send their daughters to a rape culture. Okay, so people say it, but they don't believe it. Would you send your daughter to a place you thought had a rape culture? Of course not. Would you go if you were female? Of course not. So that's a big lie. By the way, to get me to defend colleges shows I'm committed to truth, because I can't stand what colleges have become. And this, so anyway, this is the argument. So a lot of the women, why is it called, again, a rape culture? Because a lot of women do have a fair amount of sex with different men, and then feel very unhappy about it afterwards, even depressed. It's not been a road to their happiness. Are there some women who love it? I have no doubt there are some women who love it. I can never account for everyone. If you have to account for everyone, you will never understand life. You have to be able to make generalizations about most. Seatbelts save lives. Does it save everyone's life in a crash? No. Sometimes people are killed by a seatbelt. But the statement seatbelts save lives is accurate. So too, whatever statements I'm making about sexual nature of men versus women. So, okay. So, in no order of importance, one vast difference is that sex is on males' minds a lot. Or as a friend of mine said to me in high school, and he was a religious guy. He came over to me one day, Dennis, I did a survey of the guys in our class, and I came to the conclusion that 1 out of every 10 thoughts a guy has is not about sex. That was a brilliant line. That's why I didn't forget it. I wasn't in high school yesterday, and I remember it, and I thought that is really funny because there's so much truth to it. Women would be if women got a male brain for a day, there would be a lot of reactions. First of all, they would be astonished at how little is going on. That would be one of the major. They would go, "Oh my God, free at last." Whereas if men got a woman's brain for a day, I think they would shoot themselves. We would not allow them to have access to a weapon because they would probably kill themselves. So much is going on in the female brain at one time. So they're very different brains, which there's a very funny thing on the internet about a guy talking about the male brain and the female brain, and he walks over to a male, a sculpture of a male head and a sculpture of a female head. By the way, there are so many hilarious things on the internet about male-female differences, and they all resonate to the exact same ideas that I'm talking to you about now because people know it. There's a famous one about two boxes. There's a female box and a male box. So the female box has got like 10 knobs and dials, and it has lighting diodes, and the male box has an on-off switch. Or there's another one, famous one on the how to seduce a woman, and it's got a list of like 15 things: bring her flowers, say nice things, talk about what's on her mind, perhaps stroke her tenderly, like 10, 15 things. The other one, bring food, show up naked. That's it. That's it's not hard. So why do people put these things out? Because they resonate with real life. That's why. So of course men think about it more than women. Are there some women who are preoccupied with it? Yes, there are some women. But again, it's like the old seatbelts thing. It's irrelevant for the vast majority. Look, I'm so open on this. And by the way, I'm open about this because my father was. My father spoke about sex with the ease with which he would speak about the weather. There's a very rare home in that regard, and he was a religious man. He was an Orthodox Jew, and yet he spoke about it again with the ease with which, and therefore I got this from him, and so the difference only is he spoke to the family about it, and I speak to millions of people about it. But it's really I'm sort of a conduit to my father, who taught me it's part of life. Recognize it, control it, but recognize it. And God made us this way. There's nothing to rebel against. You just have to learn to control it, which is not easy. He would actually sit at our Sabbath table where we did hours and hours of talking. That's where I learned a lot about life at that table every Friday night and Saturday afternoon. And he would say, I have one question for God. Why did he make the male sex urge so strong? And my mother was present, and she loved him. They were married 69 years and together 73 years. And but he was totally aware of the male sex urge and spoke about it. So the first difference is the ubiquity of thought about it. And it takes almost nothing to trigger that thought. And that brings me to point number 2. and that is the power of the visual. Women are stimulated by a whole host of things, but for men, the visual is the most powerful, and that does not have. I've done this so often on my radio show. I have a national radio show. Even people around the world listen to it. It's on the internet. And every Wednesday, the second hour of my show is about men and women, and I'm very honest about it. And I've learned an immense amount because I have had thousands of people call in and send me emails. This is not just stuff that I knew on my own. This is stuff based on talking to so many men and women who open up to me. And so I get the argument, a woman will call up, what are you talking about? Oh, you don't think that I'm turned on by a really good-looking man? Okay, so let me answer that. There are so many answers to this question. Well, aren't women also visually aroused? Yes, but it's not comparable. And the only reason women argue with me about this is totally understandably because they don't understand how powerful it is in men. Otherwise, they wouldn't argue. So I have a whole host of proofs. The most, well, I don't know if it's the most obvious proof, but an obvious proof is what men watch on the internet. It used to be in magazines. Now, of course, it's on the internet. When I will write a book on male sexual nature, which I intend to after I have a series of books I have to finish. But it's very important. I feel a moral obligation to write such a book. So I will list, and I think I actually did. I think somewhere, but anyway, I listed some of the things that are available for men to look at, which I won't go beyond what is allowable on public video. But let's put it this way. There is nothing about a woman that for which there isn't some website. I'll give you a simple one, just legs. There are no websites of male legs to turn women on. Okay? It doesn't exist. The idea is a joke. Oh my God, look at those legs. Oh, wow. Is that exciting? Does not happen to women, but it does happen to men. In fact, you don't even need a leg. If the society had women wearing long skirts to their ankles and all you could see is the woman's ankles would turn men on. I'm not kidding. Nothing I'm saying is exaggerated or kidding because you have to hear this. Or you can't have good relations between men and women. You can't base relationships on lies. As desirable as the lies may be, the visual is that powerful. And there is no equivalent in women. That's not to say that an unbelievably gorgeous man will not turn a woman on. Of course, obviously. But even that shows you the guy has to be unbelievably gorgeous. Whereas the woman doesn't have to be unbelievably gorgeous. She basically has to breathe. And so there's no comparison. How many gorgeous men are there? Very, very, very small. The vast majority of men are average looking. They become sexy by personality, ambition, intelligence. I mean, women why did you fall in love with him? Very few will say, because he's gorgeous. Very few will say, well, because I loved his sense of humor, or I fell in love with his mind. That's what they will say. Not, because of his body. Okay? Now, it helps. I have no doubt about that. It's better to be good looking if you're a man than not good looking. I totally get that. By the way, most really good looking men are gay, so they're out of the picture for women anyway. So this is the way it works. And that's just the way it is. It's, as I said, there's no legs. So by the way, since I've gone through all of this with women who've disagreed with me, I know all the arguments. Well, women are looking at pornography too these days. Yes, but it's not the same thing, and it's not in the same numbers. Or the danger of pornography is overwhelmingly vis-a-vis males. There are other dangers for women in society. Both sexes have their own problems, but this problem is overwhelmingly a male one. So the visual has no analog for the female. By the way, that's the way the human species is made. The Bible is 3,000 years ago describes this biblical character in Genesis, Rebecca, as beautiful to look at and beautiful of form. In other words, a beautiful face and a beautiful body. 3,000 years ago, people made peace. People wrote the Bible, or God wrote the Bible, whichever one you want to do. But that's the way it is. It's not true in peacocks. In peacocks, the male is colorful and beautiful, so he is the visual stimulant. So it's true for peacocks, but it's not true for people. I can't tell you how unhappy I am that I even have to say this. I'm saying every man watching, unless he has been truly brainwashed to believe what women believe, knows what I'm saying is true. I know this because I get mail from men. The men call me up. They thank me for saying it because they can't tell their wife this. By the way, I have a great video out there, He Wants You. It's called He Wants You. I did that video at PragerU. I only do about 10% of our videos, but that's one of the ones that I did. And it is about men looking at other women. And it's very helpful to both sexes to watch that. Because in the final analysis, yes, he looks. We are programmed to look. And by the way, my wife too, I could not be happily married if I had to hide my nature from my wife. You are close to a person if you can say everything about yourself to them. The more you hide, the less you have a real relationship. Therefore, I'm telling you how often there's not a real relationship between men and women, even married men and women, because, and I know this from talking to any number, thousands of men, that they don't let their wife know what they think sexually because they're afraid of her reaction. She'll say, "You're sick." That's what they're afraid. You're sick. But it's not sick. It's completely normal. Sick is molesting a child. That's sick. I agree. There is sickness in this world. There's plenty of it. But its male sexual nature is not sick. It is normal. Doesn't mean you can act on it all the time. Of course you can't. But that is so the visual and the ubiquity of thinking about it, the ease with which it is triggered in males. But obviously, men go to work, men do their jobs, men get a lot done. But the fact is that's what they think about. I'm so open about this. I'll tell you a line I tell my wife, which is, she gets a big kick out of, and I do. Out of nowhere, we'll be driving in the car, and I'll say, the last thing on your mind is the first in mine. And we both crack up, and she knows I'm not talking about, medieval Belgian history, which is not the first thing on my mind, generally speaking, even if I'm in Belgium. So by the way, I will be in Belgium, ironically. I'll be speaking to the European Parliament in a couple of weeks, actually. It's on my website, DennisPrager.com. Where's Dennis? So if you are in Europe, especially near Belgium, you can attend my talk. It's on freedom. It will not be on male sexual nature. It will be on freedom. So does that answer the question? Did I pretty much cover the bases? We have two men and a woman here. It's you should play this if you're a girl with a boyfriend or a woman with a boyfriend. You're a wife with a husband. Say, is this true? And then watch him stutter. And see, the thing, what I have done with my male-female hour is I have defanged the monster. Male sexual nature is a monster to women, and I have removed its fangs. I have made it less frightening, which is great. It's a service to both sexes that I have done so. Okay, so how long was that?
30.
Really? Okay, so I met, what's the person's name in Sydney, Australia?
Danny.
Danny. I have really met Danny. I did it at 30 exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I really do have a built-in clock. So I'd be very happy to take more questions on this once you've seen it, because it's really, really important stuff. So I guess until next week, I'm Dennis Prager, and thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to keep these Fireside Chats free, please do by donating to PragerU.